DreAllDay.
You are now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as DreAllDay, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is the key to entrepreneurship. Balls. B-A-L-L-S. You must have balls if you're going to get into entrepreneurship. I will discuss that in a moment, or we'll get into the whole episode in a moment. First of all, let me remind or inform everyone I have a daily motivation text that I send out free of charge to everyone who's in my text community. If you want to be able to communicate with me directly, the easiest way is to text me. And every day you're going to get a message that's going to keep you focused, sharp, and on point through your day. That's going to be called the daily motivation text. You want to get it, just text me at my number, 305-384-6894. You'll get the next one coming out tomorrow. And every day when I send a daily motivation message, you'll be getting it. And as I said, you can respond to those messages and communicate directly with me. Number is down below in the show notes as well. So first of all, let's get clear. This topic, the key to asset to entrepreneurship, is having some balls. First of all, let's get a clear definition of what entrepreneurship means. I talked about this in yesterday's episode. It is the activity of setting up a business or businesses, taking on financial risk in the hope of profit. That is the definition of entrepreneurship. I talked about getting some balls in episode 1796, and I talked about how to not be how to not be a bitch in episode 1387, as how to not ask bitch ass questions in episode 640, and how to stop whining bitch in episode 886, way back in 2016. So we're going to combine all these topics and this definition of entrepreneurship here today, and I don't need to give any more intro to this because my points will cover it all. So let's get right to it. Point number one. Topic again today is the key asset to entrepreneurship is balls. Number one, the biggest challenge of entrepreneurship is the alleged guarantee that you get with, let's say, a full-time job that no longer exists. If you go into entrepreneurship, now you are giving up at least the possibility of, or the reality of, you're walking away from a full-time job to become an entrepreneur. You're walking away from that quote-unquote guaranteed paycheck that you were getting at your full-time job, or you're eliminating yourself from the pool of possible guaranteed paycheck recipients, at least if you're going to go full-time in your entrepreneurship, at least for the time being. That guarantee, I'm using air quotes when I say guarantee, of whatever check you're going to get from a full-time job. Because as an entrepreneur, you understand that your paycheck, there is no paycheck, but your money, your revenue, your income, it depends on you and your ability to deliver to people who are willing to exchange money for what you're offering. The challenge exists in the fact that you are no longer dependent on the company, whoever you are working for, to deliver that check, and you're the one who's dependent, you're the one who is depended on to deliver the check. You might have people depending on you now to deliver the check. This challenge is compounded when you have people working for you, because now they're the one looking at you as the one who is going to deliver and make sure that there's enough revenue coming in and you can cover payroll. So from this book called The Go-Giver by, this is Bob Berg and John David Mann, and I want to read this quote from this book, because the book is an allegorical account of how a business is run through the concept, through the mindset of giving before you receive. So if you haven't read this book called The Go-Giver, I would suggest that you do. But here's the quote. The single biggest challenge to any organization is the constant cloud of fear and doubt that swirls around the heads of the people involved. As an entrepreneur, your job is to hold fast to the big picture, to keep seeing in your mind's eye with crystal clarity where it is you're going, that place that right at this moment exists only in your mind's eye, and to keep seeing it even when nobody else does, especially when nobody else does. Your people need you to do this. They count on you to do this. It is the biggest job you have, close quote. So here's my question to you. What kind of person has the gall and the balls to sign up for such a job? to where there's all this doubt and uncertainty swirling around your head, maybe doubt and uncertainty swirling around the heads of the people who are working with and for you, especially when you're in a new business, you're in a business that's in the startup phase. Let's just say your first 5 years, because most small businesses go out of business within the first 5 years. Who has the gall to sign up for a job like that? Why would you sign up for a job like that? I mean, you're a masochist. You just want to sign yourself up for pain. Why not go to where it is much more easy, where you can clock in at 9 and clock out at 5? Why not just do that? Who signs up for something like this? You got to be a crazy type of individual to even think about doing this job, let alone to follow through and actually execute on it. But that came straight from a book called The Go-Giver. You haven't read it, go read it. Go read it. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is key assets of entrepreneurship is balls. Number 2, there are some people who tell you how they were able to tiptoe into entrepreneurship. And there are many articles and videos and material out there, people talking about how being an entrepreneur does not mean you're just taking on these massive, amazing risks and your life is on the line every single day and you're putting all your finances up for the possibility of loss every day in what you're doing. You can kind of walk your way into it. You don't have to jump into it. These are people who will tell you a story of how they or someone else worked their full-time job and they built their entrepreneurial thing as a side hustle while still working full-time until the side hustle was earning as much or more than the full-time gig. So they were able to slowly walk their way into their full-time business. Then they were able to drop the full-time gig and work 100% on what used to be the side gig. Now the side gig becomes the full-time gig because it's making just as much money or more as what they were making full-time before. Thus, there was much less risk involved in the process. Maybe you've heard a story like this. Maybe you heard people talk about this. And this is a very cool story. Do I believe that it happens? Yes, I do. But from my experience and also from deductive reasoning, this is not how it usually goes. Does it happen? Yes. But as I've said before, exceptions prove the rule. And I think I have an episode where I've talked about that. But just in case I don't, maybe in the future I will do one. I don't think I have one, but I will probably do one in the future. I've already told you that in order to be great at any profession, what do you need? You need to give it a full-time investment. To be great at anything, you must give it a full-time investment. You cannot be great at something while doing it part-time. You cannot be great at something while doing it as a side hustle. And anything that you're doing part-time is probably not going to pay you a full-time income. If you could do something part-time and get a full-time income from it, then hey, a salute to you, but you probably won't be able to do that forever. All right, you can't pull a full-time income from a part-time or side hustle effort. All right, that just goes against the law of compensation written by Emerson. If you haven't read that compensation essay that Emerson wrote, then you go look that up. Again, it's called Compensation and is written by Ralph Waldo Emerson. If you haven't read that, Google it. You can find it and you can read it for free. It's just an essay. It's basically a long blog post. You're not going to get a full-time revenue from a part-time effort or a side hustle effort. It simply doesn't add up and goes against the laws of physics and the law of compensation. So while it would be great for you to be able to build your side hustle up into a full-time business while only giving your side hustle a side hustle effort, it usually doesn't work that way. What usually happens is at some point, you will have to take a leap of faith, meaning your side hustle isn't quite replacing your full-time income just yet, but you want it to, and in order to get there, you're going to have to put more time into it, which means you're going to have to make a bigger investment of your resources, time, money, attention, energy, focus, so that you can get that full-time return on investment from what you're putting into your side hustle effort. And that side hustle is going to have to become a full hustle in order for you to get the full-time effort. This is how it works. Understanding taking leaps of faith, and this is why this episode is this episode. It takes balls to take a leap of faith. Now again, are there people who have been able to build up a side hustle to where the side hustle is making more money than their full-time job, even though they were only giving it a part-time effort? Yes, this does happen. But in my experience and from what I've seen, read, heard, it doesn't happen as often as people want to make you think it can happen. Usually you're going to have to take a jump at some point to where you are risking something, because that's what entrepreneurship is. You are taking on a financial risk. Your financial risk might be that you put up some money and you got to make that money back. Like, let's say you run advertising, you hire a marketing company, or you put up startup costs to start your business. The financial risk could be you have a job where you're making $200K a year, and you drop the full-time 200K so you can work on your business, which as a side hustle is making you 100K. So you took a financial risk of half of your revenue, half of your income now. You're down from 200 to 100K. Now you got to live on that until you can build the side hustle, which is now your full-time gig, into a full hustle. All right, is that a financial risk? Hell yeah, it's a financial risk, especially if you're taking care of a family on 200K. Now you got to do the same thing on half. I would consider that to be a big risk. So taking this leap of faith that is going to be required of you at some point requires that you have some balls. And if you don't have the balls to make that jump, then well, then you're going to still be in the same spot. This is how it goes. Number 3, today's topic once again is key asset to entrepreneurship is having balls. Number 3, in his book Creating Wealth, Robert G. Allen talks about the 4 forms of both tangible and intangible assets. I've discussed these before, and you can go get the book Creating Wealth and read it yourself. But on the so I'm not going to go deep into them, but on the tangible side, you have cash, credit, steady paycheck, and ownership of real estate. On the intangible side, what are the intangible assets that can help you acquire tangible assets? They are knowledge, relationships, time, and, drum roll please, courage, also known as balls. Courage is an intangible asset that is required of you if you want to succeed in business. You must have courage. Look at the definition of the word entrepreneurship again. It is going into business while taking on financial risk in the hope of profit. The hope of profit. Doesn't guarantee profit, the hope of profit. If you want to be an entrepreneur, then this is the game that you're signing up for. There is risk involved in this game. You cannot tiptoe your way into or through this game of entrepreneurship, regardless of what other people have told you. There will be risk involved. There will be chances taken. Some of them will work in your favor, and some of them simply will not. This is fact. This is not in question. This is not a theory. This is not my opinion. What is in question is how you will respond to these inevitable challenges, and that's why having balls matters so much, because you are going to come up against a challenge. You are going to come up against that financial risk is going to show itself to you in some way where you realize, like, damn, I did take a financial risk. I did take a haircut on that situation. I did take a bath in this one where I ended up losing. I do have to kind of make things work on half of what I was making things work on before. All of these things are going to come up when you're in business. The question is, how do you respond to it? It's not whether it's going to happen. The question is, how do you respond? And this is what mental toughness is all about. I've told you that 99% of things that happen in life are out of your control. You only control that 1%. Mental toughness is about how much of that 1% you take control of. How much of that 1% do you take ownership of? Even though it's only 1%, quote unquote, only 1%. With all that said, let's recap today's class, which is key asset to entrepreneurship is having balls. Definition of entrepreneurship, again, is setting up a business or businesses taking on financial risk in the hope of profit. Number 1, the biggest challenge of entrepreneurship is that the alleged guarantee that you would get from full-time work no longer exists. You're the one who has to deliver now instead of the company delivering, and you might have people depending on you to deliver. So your job, like they said in The Go-Giver, is to keep a vision in your mind's eye with crystal clarity that can see that vision even when nobody else is seeing it. Is the most important job you have on the job. Number 2, and who signs up for this? Point number 2. There are some people who tell you how they tiptoed into entrepreneurship, slowly built up their side hustle till it was making more money in their full-time gig than they just easily, casually walked from the full-time gig into the side hustle because it was already making them more money. So I understand there are people who have this happen. I would tell you though, from deductive reasoning, from my own experience, it doesn't happen as often as people want to make you feel like it happens. You will at some point need to take a leap of faith if you're going to build your business. You cannot generate a full-time income from a side hustle effort. You can't give a part-time effort to something and get a full-time income from it. Again, that doesn't even add up. Even though there are people who will tell you how they did it, or tell you that they're doing it, or that they did it, or they know somebody who did, you go do it and find out how easy it actually is when you actually are, the rubber meets the road and you have to actually do the work. It's not as easy as people try to make it sound. You want a full-time income, you got to give a full-time effort, period. And point number 3, in his book, Creating Wealth, Robert Allen talks about the 4 forms of tangible and intangible assets. The 4 intangible assets are knowledge, relationships, time, and the 4th one is courage, also known as having balls. You must have that intangible asset if you want to succeed in business, because remember, in entrepreneurship, you are putting up a risk. You are putting up a financial risk. Many people have deep emotional connections to their money, even if they don't have much of it. If you're not willing to take financial risk, you're not ready to play the game of entrepreneurship. This is why you have to get with a professional and actually do the work on yourself, on your mindset around the concept of money. I talked about the money mindset, poor money mindsets that slow a lot of people down. I talked about this in episode 2214, how your poor money mindset is keeping you broke. If you haven't listened to that episode, go listen to it now because it will help you a lot. Understand that when you get into this game, you will face setbacks, you will face challenges. It's just like in any other profession or any other industry. The question is not whether you're going to face them or not. The question is, how do you respond? All said, text me to get my daily motivation for free straight to your phone. My number 305-384-6894. And you want to work with me directly, there's one way to do it. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's workonyourgameuniversity.com. See what your options are. Sign up for a call with me, and let's talk about what we need to talk about and how we can work on your game. Dre all day.